Welcome everyone to another episode of the Exoskeleton and Wearable Robotic News. Today is February 14th, so happy Valentine's Day. And we have quite a few news stories to get through, so let's get started. In industry news, there is an interesting study published in Science Direct that explores the effectiveness of occupational exosuits for a non-symmetrical tasks. So the difference here is that it's not a lift that is done in parallel, like lifting a box with both hands, holding it, lifting it up, or working on a task with both hands simultaneously. But they're looking at something that is purposely dominating on only one side. So in this case, the main emphasis on this study is on shoveling. So the study is called Exploring the Effectiveness of a Back-Supporting Exosuit, Trunk Muscle Activity, and User Experience in Controlled and Real-World Shoveling Scenarios. So this is different from what we normally get to see. And in this case, the Apex, the HeroWear, seem to have a net positive effect both on the side of the body that is doing the most work, and then it's getting out of the way more or less successfully on the side of the body that isn't participating the most with, in this case, shoveling. Moving on, I have a sponsored article that highlights the work of FRT Robotics in South Korea. And this is an interesting one because we normally don't get to see much of what's happening in Asia on the occupational side, be it China, Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, or Japan. There's obviously the language barrier and everything else. FRT Robotics is making inroads in all matters of domain applications. They have units for first responders. They have some that are being evaluated in defense, obviously manufacturing, logistics, all the usual places that you would expect. They shared in this article their point of view of how they are approaching the exoskeleton technology, its implementation, its usability, and it's from a distinct point of view that we almost never get on the exoskeleton report. So I highly encourage everyone who's interested in the Asian market to take a look. Finally, for the last industrial occupational news for the week, Comau has launched the Mate XT Go shoulder support exoskeleton. And while it is normal to have exoskeleton companies launch new versions of their devices every few years, especially this being an emerging field and everything, what is new here is that they have a Category II PPE mark using the EU 2164215 that has to go through third-party validation. Furthermore, the press release is saying that they have more than 3,000 locations where the original Mate exoskeletons are already being used, which is quite a high number and a pleasant surprise. On the medical side, Cyberdyne has hosted an event in Turkey in January of 2026, which to me, it's another clear signal that Turkey and that entire region is developing an appetite for wearable and exoskeleton technology, but both on the medical side and the occupational, where we're now both seeing Turkish exoskeleton companies and companies that are making the time and effort to go and present there. Similar, Syrebo has a different press release on an event that was joined Egypt, China Pharmacy Conference, and I guess they must have had medical equipment in addition to that. The company boasts that the event went well. Syrebo has inflatable hand exoskeleton in their case, and the press release is again optimistic that that general region in the world is starting to become more interested in this technology and that they're making inroads. If you like this content, like, subscribe, and if you really like this content, please support me on Patreon. And in that vein, I'm happy to report that the Exoskeleton Report now has its very first non-exoskeleton company corporate supporter. Special thanks to RoboGolfPro for joining the Exoskeleton Report family. For those who are not familiar with them, RoboGolfPro has really sizable machine. It's over 7 feet high, over 2 meters high, that has 7 motors and is able to execute golf swings precisely in full 3-dimensional space with the swing and the wrist movement. So the robot holds the golf stick on one side and then the user holds it on the other. So that way you can have repeatable swings. Let's say you want like Tiger Woods 100 yard. You load that up in the machine and you get to practice it exactly the same way repeatedly. Back to exoskeleton news. We have a new podcast on the Exoskeleton Report. It's episode 25, and it is with Stanley handling in the UK. And this is the first time that we've had an exoskeleton integrator on the show. So the conversation really focuses on how do you present this technology to workers? What is usually the response from workers? This episode is really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. It's this in-between point of, well, we have the technology, we have the research and development, we know we have all these use cases where people can benefit from the exoskeletons, and then how do you connect the two? I think it's a wonderful episode. It's definitely different from what we've had before. We already have plans for more episodes like that. Check it out. It's available on streaming. There's also a summary on the website. And then obviously all the links to these articles and to these news you can find in the actual newsletter or in the newsletter archive on the Exoskeleton Report. But I'm not the only one that published exoskeleton-related podcast episode this week. Humotech has published episode 2 of season 3, and this one is really more focused on the research and development side. So something for everyone. You have one applied episode and you have one research and development episode. And this is with Dr. Takahashi, his journey of creating a biomechanics and mobility lab at University of Utah, and his approach to biomechanics on the technology side of things, where they don't really neatly fit into any one category. There's another exoskeleton for space travel. This one is from University of Bristol, and it's a pneumatic leg exoskeleton. And the idea here is that when you have prolonged space travel, in this case a mission to Mars, you would expect considerable muscle atrophy to the passengers, even if they do exercises daily. Just the reality of zero gravity and microgravity environments. So obviously we don't want a situation where we finally get people to land on Mars, and then the moment they step out, even though it's environment with lower gravity, we don't want them to start breaking bones, or in this particular case, we don't want them to get fatigued immediately. We would want them to be able to run experiments, walk around, set equipment, build things ideally. So obviously a pneumatic exoskeleton like the one featured here, it does little to address gravity compensation. So it would not be so much useful for safeguarding the bones of the astronauts, but to reduce fatigue, allow them to work for longer while they're on the surface there. That definitely it can do if executed correctly. Then that's it for the news. Our little job board continues to be updated. I've really never seen this pickup in open exoskeleton positions. Quite exciting. There's positions at Trios for marketing, for the textiles person, assembly and sales. There's 4 positions open at Robotics, 2 positions open at Defy, and so on. The list continues. Again, all of this you can find on the website. Just go to the newsletter archive. All of these are clickable links. Same thing with the events calendar. These are the major exoskeleton focused events that are coming up. Same thing, no need to read through them. You can find the links to them through the website. And special thanks to our strategic partners, and very special thanks to our Patreon supporters. Your financial and moral support goes a long way in continuing this work. And with that, thank you for your attention. Happy Valentine's Day and have a fantastic week. Ciao.